Perfect. Okay, so thank you guys for joining today. My name is Dottie Vance, and I'm going to be taking you through today's session. I'm joined here virtually by some of my colleagues who may speak up during question and answer and maybe to provide some clarity on the topic that we're discussing. In addition, on this call today, I have my producer, Mo, who's going to be helping me with monitoring any questions or anything that folks need to talk about during this training. So today in this training, we're here to talk about the changes being implemented as part of the Transmission Service and Market Scheduling Priorities Phase 2, Track 1, that monthly process aspect. Also, to increase transparency and provide greater service to our stakeholders, we are recording this webinar. It's going to be posted on our website within the next 24 hours so that you can go back and review this for the future. And in case if folks aren't here on the call today, they can review this recording as well. These slides are posted on the Learning Center under New Modules on the ISO website. In addition, Mo's going to put a link in the chat to these slides so you have them on hand as we go through this training today. Now, before we get started on the training, I did want to talk about some housekeeping. So as we go through this call, please remain on mute just to help with that background noise. If you have any questions during this call, you have two options. You can either raise your hand and we'll call on you to unmute yourself and ask your question, or you can put it in the chat box and we'll get to that question as well. Now, this training does have built-in Q&A periods. So if you have a question and you want to raise your hand, we'll call on you once we get to that designated stopping point. So with that, I want to talk about the agenda for today. So what are we going to be talking about with this time together? So we're going to review the background on the project at a high level. We're going to walk through the application-specific details. So you'll see some applications that are familiar to you, like Oasis or Cyber, and maybe a new application, which I'll hint to here in the next couple of slides. And then we want you to leave today being prepared for market simulation and understanding any readiness activities. So now that we've laid the groundwork, we know the agenda for today's training. Let's talk about why we're here. What has brought us to this training in the beginning? So with the supply shortfalls across the Western interconnection, they're contributing to the increased dependence on import generation to serve load reliability. It's going to be critical to both internal and external load serving entities that the ISO establishes a proper framework of market scheduling priorities for wheel-through transactions through the ISO balancing authority area. So with that, we have developed this new process for establishing the wheeling through priority. So this project introduces a design to identify the available transfer capability that ATC that can be allocated to priority wheeling through the PWT across the ISO. This project also provides opportunity for external entities to drive transmission upgrades across the ISO system to support a wheeling through. So currently, load has priority to ATC at an intertie, and this project will give those wheel through schedules the same priority to the ATC. For this training today, because we are talking about track 1, we're specifically going to be talking about the monthly feature. We have later trainings in the future that'll talk about that daily process, which I'll talk here too in a second. Also on the screen, I have linked the current PRR 1548. That'll take you to that site. In the future, we are also working on other BPM changes, and I'll have that information in later trainings as well. So speaking of the future, let's look at the implementation timeline. So we're here today at the external training. We're going to understand that monthly process. Market simulation is going to kick off for this track on the 4th, and then the monthly process will be implemented around April 11th. If we see towards the future, we're going to have some more trading coming up, so we'll get that scheduled for that daily process. We'll be in early April. There's going to be another market simulation to test out those functionalities, and then that will be implemented, which will lead us to the production activation that aligns with the tariff for 6/1/2024. Now, this project has a lot of information attached to it, so I wanted to include the policy initiative page link. It's at the bottom of this screen, so whenever you look at the slides, you'll be able to click that, and it's going to bring you back to all the policy that has led us up to this point. So now that we have a groundwork for why we're here from the project and where we're going, let's talk about the application-specific details. So I hinted to this earlier. You're going to see some familiar applications like Masterfile or Oasis. And then we see tucked into this, we see an application called WebWheel. So before I talk about the applications that you're more familiar with, I want to preview WebWheel so you know what these applications are going to be interacting with. So at a high level, and again, in the next couple slides, I'll have more details later on about WebWheel, but at a high level, this is a new ISO application. You're going to need a certificate, and you're going to have to be registered in Masterfile, which here in a bit, I'll talk to you about what that looks like. It's also going to be a platform where you submit and maintain your power contracts. It's going to be where you request priority wheel through, that PWT, and where you can view those awards as well. If you're wondering where the link is to this application, we are working on including it in the market participant portal, and we're hoping to get that on there before market simulation. So now that we have previewed WebWheel at the basic level, again, later on, I'll go into more details about WebWheel. I want to talk about the first step in this process, and that's going to be in Masterfile. So this is a required first action if you want to get access to this new application. So participants will have two options here. The first one is that they'll need to register their resources. So they'll go to the new Intertie resource request template, they'll click on it, and they'll fill out the yes for the PT wheel scheduled. They can disregard the PT wheel megawatts as that's not needed. For registration, the ISO is going to ask a user to submit 11 business days in advance. However, there's no upper limit to doing this. So you could submit as early as you want, as long as you're going to indicate that correct effective date in Masterfile, it will accommodate what you choose. The other option is if you've already registered. So you've already done this, whether it be through TSMSP 1, a previous training, you're good to go. You do not have to go in and re-register. Additionally, the ISO is actually going to go into what you've registered and clear out the PT wheel megawatts from those entries so you don't have to. So after you've registered in Masterfile, now you're going to need that certificate access that we kind of talked about. So that's going to be an AIM, the Access and Identity Management. So what I want to talk about here is this is for scheduling coordinators with that contract obligation to serve the external load access will need access to the WebWheel application. This will be on the existing contract types that are going to receive this role that I have here on the screen. So they'll be added to that, as I said, the existing contracts. And once it is set up, the UAA will just need to provision access like any other application. I also just want to call attention to the associated application and roles. So similar to other applications, you have a read and a read write. So just make sure you're monitoring what exactly you want to give your participant, whether they just read the information or they can go in and add information to that application. So I covered quite a bit. I talked about how we're leading up to WebWheel, how to get into it, those first couple steps. This next session, next slides, I'm going to talk about WebWheel itself. But I did want to pause and just take a pulse check, see if anyone had some initial questions. So I'll pass it over to Mo to let me know if there's any hands raised or any questions in the chat.
Thank you, Dottie. As a reminder, you can use the hand raise icon located at the bottom of the screen to verbalize your question. You'll need to unmute yourself and state your name and your company, or you can add your questions or comments to the chat box. As of this moment, Dottie, I do not see any questions in the chat box. Let me check to make sure we have any hand raised. We do, actually. We have one from Eric Johnson. Eric, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I was looking at the different SC contract types. Is that something that's new in the SC contracts that I would have to then designate as the AIM contact?
No, these will be on the existing. So there's no new contract type, they're existing.
Okay, so it's specific to if I have a wheel through already with that I've already registered with the ISO, correct?
I may defer to Asmi on that. I believe so, but I don't want to give a confirmation just yet.
That's just it. When I look at my different SC types, I don't have one specific to that. But then we haven't actually tried to have priority with wheel throughs at this point. I was looking at this to potentially provide that to someone who does get export power from us, but we just hadn't given it a priority.
Eric, let's take that question back and we'll provide an update in the chat box.
Okay, because I do see that I have a SC plus MSA SC in there. It was just, I just wanted to know if that was the one or if it was a new one, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does make sense. And we'll take it back just to confirm, because if you have it, that is going to be added to that existing contract type. So I want to say yes, but I'll just confirm really quickly with our SMEs on the side,
Okay,
and we'll
perfect.
put that in the chat.
All right, I'll take a look there. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Daddy, we do have another question from Chen-Yu Lo. Chen-Yu, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, good afternoon. This is Chen-Yu from PG&E. So can you go back to a couple of slides? So in one of these, instead of establish the certificate, we do not need to have the master file registration, correct? Only part we need to do is that making sure the end is provision to gain access.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Daddy, I don't see any other hands raised. Just checking one more time. And I don't see any questions in the chat. Back to you, Daddy.
Okay, perfect. So now let's move on to WebWheel, this fun application that I've been hinting to and doing a high-level overview of. Let's dive a little bit deeper into this application. So in this section, we're going to talk about the participant dashboard. So this is the first thing you'll see when you get access to WebWheel, and then a specific tab that I want to go over with you because you'll be using it quite a bit. And then I also want to make sure you're ready for market simulation. So I want to walk through submitting a power contract, requesting PWT, and then reviewing those awards as well. So as I mentioned, we're going to start first with the participant dashboard. So the first thing you see as you enter when you click the link into WebWheel, after you get access, of course. So this is the dashboard itself, and I'm going to highlight a few things just so you're familiar with it when you log into it. So we have the submission window. So this is going to be that process as we go through, provides a summary of where we're at in the process. So the request window will open. You'll see it's like a little lock that unlocks to tell you that, okay, PWT requests are open. Once it closes, it's going to be a little locked icon, and it'll show that it's highlighted as locked. That means the ISO is no longer accepting requests. It'll then move to the award. It'll highlight up that the awards, and then it'll be published, which we show that later on as well. The next thing I want to talk about is the news and announcements. So that's just as it sounds. It's just different messages letting users know what is going on in the system. The activity log is going to be tracking what you're doing in the system itself, provide you status on that as well. I want to call out for these two next sections I'm going to show you. It is going to be for your particular participants. So it's individualized to only see your information. So here we'll log how many PWT request counts you have, and then as well as your records, it's going to just be at-glance information about what you have going on in this system. The next thing I want to cover is the data tab. So this tab you'll be using to submit contracts. So we'll click on that, and I'll just go quickly through this just so you have an overall understanding about what these different pages will give you. For example, the holidays tab, if you were to click that, it's just going to show you that we adhere to the North American Electric Reliability Corporation, and we'll list the holidays there. The products, this is just standard energy products, and I actually included a screenshot of that slide itself that provides more depth information about what these product summaries are. If your organization needs a specific energy product, that can be created in this application. The next thing I want to talk about is the participants. Again, you're only going to see your participants with your certificate, and that's how you navigate to there. The next three are the intertie points, the market constraints, and the intertie constraint maps. That just provides high-level information about your resource ID, market constraints, and then a summary of the intertie market constraint, and then that effective termination date. This next one, which I'll come back to here in a moment, is the contracts. So that's where we're going to select to go and put in our contracts and also to view a summary of the contracts that we have in this application. And then the last section is the monthly ATC. So this is just a summary of how much is available to put in your bids for the PWT awards. I just want to also clarify that this ATC is specifically used for the wheel through priority reservation process. So now that we have an understanding of that first splash page when you get in, you know how to navigate to contracts, I want to go through the process of actually registering a power contract. So again, we'll go back to the data tab, we'll go down to contracts, and it's going to bring us to this screen. It's a contract summary screen, and right now it's empty just because we don't have any contracts built in. What you're going to do is navigate to the little bar on the right, and you're going to click that little page icon, and that's just symbolizing a new contract. In the appendix, I have explained exactly what each of these little buttons on the side are going to do, so you can refer back to that as you go through this. So you'll hit new, and it's going to open up a new contract for you to fill out. So the name is going to be the title of the contract. That can be whatever the participant will want that to be. The participant is the ID of who's registering the contract. Once the participant puts in their ID, it's going to automatically filter the import-export interties that are registered in master file. And then we have the product. So again, that's what that products page was that I talked about, the energy contract that is desired. If you needed a refresher, you can go back to that page and see what 1 times 16 is. The next is the periods. So you're going to be picking either for the monthly or the daily process. Again, this is just for the monthly process, so that's what you'll be picking. For profile type, when we get to that section, you'll have 2 options. You'll either have a flat or a variable. Flat just means you're going to have one number of megawatts across the duration of the contract. And then variable, if you select that option, you'll be able to vary how many megawatts you put across the different type of months that you have designated. So you can enter that as well. Now this section, the additional attributes, is defaulted to not be shown. So you'll just click the arrow in the corner to show it if you would like to add a contact reference or a counterparty to your contract. And then the last step of creating a power contract is to complete a legal attestation. So you're going to be putting your name, title, department, and company. You'll then put your company and then a signature. And then by completing this attestation and hitting save, the user is agreeing that this information in the contract is accurate. So then once you hit save, you have a power contract now registered in WebWheel. So I covered that, and I want to pause really quickly to see if folks have any questions about registering a power contract before we go on to submitting those PWT requests and viewing awards. So Mo, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Thank you, Dottie. At this moment, there is one question that came in regarding the recorded training. Yes, it will be posted on the ISO Learning Center. I went ahead and provided the link to the Learning Center in the chat box. I'm also looking to see if we have any hand raised. I don't see any at this time, but I do have Nicole Hines from our SE request team who can answer the question that Eric asked earlier. So Eric, if we can have you restate your question so that way Nicole can provide some clarification to that space.
Didn't write it down, but the question was simply the contract type of scheduling coordinator agreement plus MSA SC. Does it require anything further aside from the fact that if you already have it as the AIM contact that you can then provision that access once you've registered at least one in the master file?
That's a great question. So from my understanding, we're going to add it to that existing contract in AIM, and as soon as that contract is added, your UAA would then go in and provision access to, excuse me, to any employees that need that access. So it should be pretty streamlined on the UAA end, and you would provision access just like any other application.
Now, once they have access provisioned, would I have to go back and redo it again, similar to new meters projects, or would it be continuous as long as that person has it even if there are no contracts or contracts expire and new ones come up?
As long as this application acts like all of our other applications, you only have to provision it once per SCID. So if you have multiple SCIDs or in the future you get a new SCID, you would then have to provision that access to that new ID. But once you set it up, it should be good to go.
Okay, thank you so much.
No problem.
Eric, you also had another follow-up question, but I believe Dottie's going to be covering that information in the next few slides. So, Dottie, do you want to go ahead and proceed?
I kind of figured that's why I just put it in the comments.
You beat us to it.
Yes, that's perfect. It tees up as I go into this next section.
Could I
Okay,
so this is Gaston Mejia. Just may I follow up with a quick question on what was mentioned about the master file?
Of course, yeah.
My hand, thank you, had my hand up. So thank you, Nicole. Just when registering in the master file, I assume that is per SCID, and that registration, is it something that is to be sent out through a CD ticket or send out straight to you with the fields that were asked to be checked? How will we do that? Thank you.
So are you asking how do you get a new ID, or are you asking how you're going to get access to this application?
Not the application, but the need to register and first register in the master file. That was slide number 10. That process to do it, is that something that I send you that template, the master file, to you via CD, to an email? How do I do that?
I unfortunately was not here for slide 10. Dottie, would you mind going back to slide 10 so we could take a look, or if someone else on the team knows the answer?
Yep, let me go back really quickly.
Thank you so much for the help. Appreciate that. Yes, on the left side, user must first register in master file and select certain types of fields to do that. And so how would I send that information to the California? So that's my question.
Oh, okay. So what it looks like is that in an IRT similar to a GRDT, so that Excel file, I believe you would upload to master file. Let me hand that over to Jay Tong. Is he on the call to speak for master file?
I don't believe he is, but let us send that question over to Jay and get you an update on that.
Okay, perfect. Just want to clarify which template to use and how to submit it. That's all. Thank you so much for the help.
Of course. And we'll definitely get that answered for you. And I'll include that in an update with these slides, just so it's in these slides as well going forward.
Thank you.
Of course, yeah. Sorry for the whiplash if I'm going through these slides. Okay, perfect. So I will go forward with talking about submitting the PWT request and doing awards. So to do that, this is once a participant has registered a power contract and that submission window opens. So I did see that question in the chat about what is the submission window. The request window is going to be open for 14 days, and then it closes at T-30. The month results are then published 3 days after that, so it'll be a 14-day. I've also included here on the slide, the ISO has updated the 2024 monthly wheeling through priority request due dates. So you'll be able to click that and it'll bring you up all those due dates that are happening for this year. So to navigate to the PWT request, you'll go to the Operations tab and you'll select PWT request. It's going to bring you to this landing page. So it looks very similar to when you're submitting a power contract. It has a summary of the PWT request that you have, and you'll click that little page icon to create a new one. Again, very similar to what a power contract looks like. It's going to be a little pop-up, and you'll enter your participant information, the contract. Your import and export interties are going to automatically filter depending on that contract and participant ID. And then as well as it'll default to the product that you've picked for that contract. You can change that, but it will default to what you've registered. The next thing will be the period type. So this will be for the monthly again, and the submissions can range to the desire that you would like. So we have that period range as well. We have a profile type, so similar to how you did the power contract, you can have a flat, which will be that 1 megawatt across, or you can do a variable, which could range, as well as you'll notice how many remaining megawatts you have in the system, so it'll help you as you fill this out. Now this next part is accept pro rata, accept partial. I wanted to go a little bit deeper about what that looks like if you do check those boxes on this next slide. So let's first start with pro rata. So if you were to check yes on the box that indicates yes, the request can be awarded up to the requested amount for the evaluation period. So it'll be a subset of megawatts. So an example of this is if you request 100 megawatts, the system could say, well, it doesn't have the full 100 megawatts, but could give you 75. If the pro rata flag is not checked, meaning no, then the award has to be for the full 100 megawatts. Anything besides that will not be accepted in the request. And then the next part is partial. So if you check yes to partial, this means that requests can be awarded for each month included in the request duration. So this is a subset of months. So if the flag is not set, the system will only award if it can fulfill awards for all the months that are requested. So after a participant picks if they want to participate in pro rata or partial, they'll hit save, and that's going to submit their PWT request. It's going to bring them back to this landing page, and they'll see all their information that's listed in that request, as well as the status column. So the status column will let you know if it's been accepted, if it's been awarded, or if it's been rejected. If it has been rejected, you'll see a bright red box at the bottom of your screen telling you that it's been rejected, as well as letting you know what you need to do to go in and fix that. So then after it's awarded and you look at this, you can go to reviewing your PWT awards. So this is going to be under that operations tab. You'll scroll right beneath the request to the awards, and you'll click it and it'll bring you to this landing page. Remember that this is 3 business days after the request window has closed. So I'm going to pause here and see if folks have questions about submitting PWT requests. And I'll pass it over to you, Mo. Thank you.
Thank you, Dottie. I am looking to see if we have any hands raised. I don't see any at this time. I'm also looking for some questions. There was a question that came in that asked about the availability of this application in the map stage environment. No, at this time, the application is not available in that map stage environment. Does that answer your question? And then also, we do have Jay Tong, who just joined us on the call, so that way he can help address the master file question from earlier. Gaston, if you want to restate your question. If not, you can also still add your question to the chat box, and we can have Jay address it through there if that works. In the meantime, Dottie, I'm looking to see if we have any additional hand raised. I don't see any, and then I don't see any additional questions at this time. So back to you, Dottie.
Okay, perfect. So now that we've talked about WebWheel, I want to talk about CIRA, so Customer Interface for Resource Adequacy. This section is going to be specifically for the CAISO BAA, and it's going to be about submitting the non-RA contracts in CIRA for the historic and new LSEs. So let's jump into there. So in CIRA, there is going to be a new screen. It's that native load needs, the NLN submission. The way you'll access this is through CIRA, the application. You'll go to the Plans tab, and then you'll see that there is that new section for NLN submission. Now, I do want to point out that there's 2 different types of NLNs that native load needs. There's an NLN1, which is how we refer to as shown RA contracts, and this is something that is currently stored in CIRA. We have another type of NLN, which is NLN0, which is known as that firm non-resource adequacy import supply contract. And this is going to be the information that we're going to be entering in CIRA today. So to give an overview as we're diving deeper into this page, you'll see on the landing page that there's an add/view future NLN. By clicking that, it's going to bring you to this page itself, so you can review the future NLN. You'll click the Add button to get a new row, and you'll begin filling out information if you need to. So we'll break it down. So we have the month, year, LSE, and TIE. So you'll fill out those informations. You'll see that the LSE and TIE are drop-down information. We have M+1 and then M+12 in contract hours. During the submission window, participants shall have the ability to submit the non-RA contracts for the M+1 and M+12. Additionally, we have something called the replacing RA contracts, and this is where you provide the replacement intertie in megawatts. And then again, we have a note saying to replace the megawatt and how it cannot be greater than M+12. I also want to mention that users can update any submitted data by updating one value on the UI and then selecting save, or they're able to say, for example, they want to delete the whole row. They can click it, like do a little check mark, a delete pop-up will show up, and you'll just select OK to delete that entire row. If we go forward to viewing historical data, we'll click that link here, and it's going to bring us to this page. You'll be able to see all historical data that is available to you. You'll also be able to download this information, so you can download it whether it be a CSV file, an Excel, or a PDF. So participants are essentially going to go in and check what historical data is present. They're going to download this file, and then we're going to go to the next part about making changes if necessary. So again, this is what those templates look like, and you're going to use this for uploading in the future. You'll clear or edit any of the information that you see, whether it be in the Excel file or the CSV file, and you'll update it accordingly to what you believe is accurate. And then you'll be able to upload it. So again, that little upload historical data section, we'll click that, and it's going to maneuver us to this page. Using the templates we just saw, you'll upload the file, you'll click the attestation showing to confirm that this information is accurate, and you'll hit upload. And then that information will be there for you to upload. I also want to call out that users are able to re-upload historical data, and it will override the previous entries. And then just for the last part for awareness, the reset button is just going to reset the filters that clear the data on that UI user interface. So I'm going to stop here and see if there's any questions about what I just discussed. I'll pass it over to you, Mo, to see if we have any hands raised or questions in the chat.
Thank you, Dottie. I'm looking at the chat box, and I don't see any additional questions, but we did get an answer for Guess on Some question earlier regarding master file. With respect to that, you just fill out the template based on that link that was in slide 10. I also added a link to that template in the chat box, and you would just submit your request through City. Also, I'm going to see if we have any hands raised. Oh, was there?
It was just thank you for that. Appreciate that.
No problem. Thank you. And then let's see, I don't see any hand raised on here, but as a reminder, if you'd like to ask your questions, please feel free to use the hand raise icon, or you can add your questions to the chat box. In the meantime, Dottie, I don't see any additional questions. Back to you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Mo. So this next section we're going to be talking about is cyber. So we're just going to recapping our expectations as it relates to the scheduling, infrastructure, and business rules. I'll also be talking about settlements here later on, but we'll start first with cyber. So for scheduling coordinators, scheduling wheeling is going to remain the same. I have attached a link here for the cyber user guide, specifically calling out the section that talks about wheeling bid walkthroughs. In the appendix, I've also included information from our previous training, TSMSP 1, that describes cyber in more detail and provides a good refresher. So as it relates to this project, when it comes time to be rewarded for that PWT, the results are going to be sent over to cyber, and that's where they're going to be stored. What users are going to be doing is they're going to be validating. So they're validating the import and export and making sure that those belong to the same contract and that they're scheduled for the wheel transaction. Additionally, in the appendix, I have an example that I pulled from the BRS and the SMEs that talks about there can only be one counter resource per wheeling transaction for the trading hour. So if you're curious and want to dive a little bit deeper into that, we do have that in the appendix for you. If we move on to OASIS, so that is the Open Access Same Time Information System, I want to preview this new report, the ATC for PWT request, so you know exactly where to find it and what that information will look like on this site. So if you navigate to OASIS, it's going to be under that transmission tab, and it'll be called the ATC for PWT request. You'll click on that, and it's going to bring you to this landing page. So this report's going to display several different calculation points. So it'll have the PWT ATC values, along with a few other values that should look familiar to you, like the NLN. And for this, it'll be for the monthly process only. So it'll be that month plus that window. I've included a link to the tech specs for OASIS. So if you are someone who wants to get in the weeds on the technical aspects of this, I will refer you back to there. Also, just a reminder, if you wanted to see your individual award or be more specific to you, you will be able to see that in WebWheel. Also, just a heads up for downloading, you are able to do a monthly group zip download, and it's going to give you 1 month. So each month will have its own file that's going to mirror the UI report. So I'm going to pause here before we move on to settlements to see if folks have any questions. Mo, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Dottie. We do have a question that just came in, and this one says, most of the information is specific to participants within the CAISO BA. How does this apply to a participant trading with CAISO on ties and wheeling energy through CAISO? For example, Palo BL, and Palo to 4. So
that is a great question, Mo. I think I'm going to defer that to our SMEs. So who is on the call? Abdul, if you're on the call, or whoever thinks they could speak to that best.
Yeah, thanks, Dottie. This is Abdul Muhammad Ali. This information is for the participants that are wheeling through the CAISO BAA. So it applies for participants who are within the BAA or outside the BAA. The target is if you have a wheel-through priority that you want to make a reservation for and secure, you are applicable. You just need to have, the proper scheduling coordinator registration and access, like Dottie talked about earlier in the slides. And once you get that secured, if you have a contract that you want to secure priority wheel through, you use the web wheel process. So it's applicable for any scheduling coordinators, actually more specific to external scheduling coordinators who are wheeling through our system. The only part that is specific to the CAISO BAA LSCs is the SIRA portion, the native load component, the SIRA access, the SIRA submission for native load submissions. That is limited to California load serving entities, to the scheduling coordinators who are acting on behalf of the California ISO load serving entities that have non-RA contracts to serve their load. So that's the one that's unique to the BAA. The web wheel access, this entire process of securing wheel through priority, that is open for anyone who wants to wheel through our system.
Thank you, Abdul. Bernardo, does that answer your question? And you can also respond via chat if needed. There is a hand raised. Before I get to Eric, there is also a hand raised from Chenyu Lo. Chenyu, you want to go ahead and unmute yourself?
Yeah, good afternoon. I have a simple question. If you can go back, I just need to see what in the OASIS report under which report that we're able to see this information. Okay, transmission. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Yeah, of course, thank you.
Next question is from Eric Johnson. Eric asked, if the load served is not a registered LSC in CAISO and an internal SE is providing power to them, how does this process apply?
That is, I think that means they are exporting. I think this example is a scenario of an internal SC, internal generation, trying to export power into an external LSC, external meaning an LSC outside the CAISO BAA. That follows today's export process. It's not relevant to today's discussion or the wheeling through process. The wheeling through process is only for participants who are trying to wheel through the California ISO balancing authority area, meaning they would import power into our BAA and then export it from a different intertie point. So going in from one intertie point, exit from a different intertie point, and they want high priority for that wheel through. That's specifically what this new process is for.
Thank you, Abdul. Eric, does that answer your question? And you can also respond in the chat.
Yeah, that was perfect. Thanks.
Perfect. We also have a question from Bernardo Guerrera. Go ahead and unmute yourself. We can also come back to you, Bernardo, or if you want to go ahead and add your question in the chat, that's okay as well. In the meantime, let me see if we have any other questions. I don't see any other hand raised, and no further questions, Dottie, so back to you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Phil. So this next section that I want to talk about is settlements. And I just want to review the impacts for that PWT with you today. So there is going to be an update to the wheel export quantity PC. It's going to include the resale calculation and the original PWT transaction, plus the existing export quantity calculations. So it's been modified to include both the resale and the original. And the settlement configuration will calculate and settle any PWT awards through the PWT or resale process. The resale functionality will not be included for this upcoming market simulation, and there's going to be additional information in the upcoming trainings that'll speak more to that. I also wanted to point out that there's going to be indirect impacts. So we have those charges for 382 and 383. And I've also linked here a specific document on our release planning page. It's the CGPC wheel export quantity. So again, if you're someone who really wants to look deeper down at equations, all hats off to you. You can definitely go in and look at that, and it'll provide a more detailed explanation of this process. In addition, I did want to provide some examples as we walk through what this change will look like at the wheeling access charge level. So how does this impact that? So for this example, we're going to use that an entity is registering an import contract at A and an exporting contract at B, and there could be a few examples of how their wheeling access charge will end up. So setting the groundwork, so let's say in this example that in the monthly, they're awarded 100 megawatts. In the daily, they receive 20. So that leaves them with a total awards for that trade date of 120 megawatts. As they're going into schedule, they realize that they only need to schedule 80 megawatts. So there's that additional 40 that were left over, but they didn't need to schedule it. When they go to their wheeling access charge, they'll see that they are going to be charged for the 120 megawatts. And this is a new requirement that has the WAC is being charged against the wheel through capacity if its schedule is less. So again, if an entity's actual schedule, AKA usage, is less than the awarded PWT capacity, then the entity would pay WAC on the awarded capacity rather than its actual schedule. Now, another example of this, and we'll say the total awards are the same for that trade date, so it's 120. Let's say that they go in and they realize actually they have to schedule 150 megawatts, so they needed an additional 30. When they go to look at their wheeling access charge, they're going to see that they're charged for 150, and this is current practice that is taking place already. So if the entity's actual schedule, again, that usage is greater than the awarded PWT capacity, then the entity would pay WAC on the actual schedule. On this slide, I think we summed it up pretty nicely from those examples. So in the combination, we have this new requirement that we just talked about. We have a current practice. The entity is going to be paying the maximum of the two, whether that be the PWT's awarded capacity and the PWT's actual export schedule. Again, here I have linked on this slide just a second time for folks to go back and look at that text document if they want further details. So I'm going to stop here and see if folks have questions about anything regarding settlements, and I'll pass it over to you, Mo.
Thank you, Dottie. Again, as a reminder, if you'd like to verbalize your questions or comments, please feel free to go ahead and use the hand raise option. And then you also have the option to put your questions in the chat box. I'm looking at the chat box and I don't see any additional questions at this time. And then for the hand raise, it does not look like we have any. So Dottie, back to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mo. Okay, so now I want to talk about market simulation activities. We are having a market simulation. It starts on the 4th.
Hello?
And we are, I'm so sorry?
The laptop there.
So we are going to have market simulation activities. We do have the unstructured guided scenarios, which I'll talk to here. So it starts March 4th. I've pulled this table from one of our SMEs to kind of break it down, and I know there's going to be more information in our market simulation platforms. I've linked here the scenarios that's on our release planning page, and it'll tell you more information about what is expected of you. So it runs from March 4th through the 21st, you'll see here in this table, with each week being a month. You'll see there is a break for the map stage outage on the 11th through the 15th, so they have built that in for the market simulation. You'll also see the month window, the open submission window, so what that time frame looks like, when does it close, and then the publishing of the results. So it'll tell you that information as well. Now, if you have a question as you go through market simulation, they do have platforms for you to submit questions. So anytime as you're going through that process, please feel free to submit a city ticket and they'll be able to answer those questions that you have, as well as bring up any points in the market simulation forum as well. So I'll pause here and see if folks have any questions about market simulation. I know my review was very high level and market simulation platform has been providing more information, but I will stay here and see if folks have any questions. So I'll pass it over to you, Mo.
Thanks again, Dottie. Again, it's your opportunity to ask your questions either through the hand raise option or through the chat box. And if you don't have, if you still want to ask your questions after the training, you're still more than welcome to submit your questions after the fact, and we'll provide an answer for that later on, and we'll share it with everyone. At this time, Dottie, I don't see any new questions in the chat box, and I'm not seeing any additional hand raised. Oh, actually, I take it back. There is one from Shu. If you want to go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, hi, Shub at TEA. I had a question that I threw in the chat, but I had to quickly drop off from the call. Mainly asking, is this available in the map stage? And if it is, does that mean we would need to register through the master file to get access in the map stage? Speaking of the application.
That is a great question. I am going to refer back just to make sure to one of the SMEs that are on the call.
Hi, this is Cheng. So the Webflow application is not yet available to you in map stage. It will be, and you should do the provisioning and the master file change in order to register for that when it does become available to you.
Okay, gotcha. So apply through the master file to see it in map stage.
Yeah, and you know, my recommendation is for the master file request, go ahead and submit that now. So because we are configuring the system, and then we can have that in the queue and process it when it becomes available for you. So you don't have to wait to submit your template through the city. Okay.
Gotcha. Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Trang. Mo, were there any other questions?
No additional questions in the chat, and I don't see any additional hand raised at this time. So back to you, Dottie.
Okay, thank you so much, Mo. Okay, so now we're in the wrap up of this training. So let's just talk about some final things before we end this session today. So after this training sometime today, you are going to receive an email with a request to complete a training evaluation. If you please take a moment to please complete the survey, it's going to allow us to create better and more effective training for you in the future. And it should only take between 3 to 5 minutes, and will really value us as we help to improve our training. And that's all I have for you today. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the session, within a day or by the end of today, this recording will be posted on the Learning Center as well. The slides are already posted on the Learning Center, so those will be there for you. If you have any questions about something that was presented here today, you can send an email over to customerreadiness@CAISO.com. And then if you have any other data-specific questions, you can submit a city ticket. But I'll stop here. And again, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. I hope you all have a great rest of your day.